Normally we stick things in the garden at the end of May. I've been watching the weather here. Things are looking pretty good. So we are gonna stick a couple things in the ground a little early today. Well, the first thing we gotta do is get some seeds. What we're gonna put in this year. Danny corn. We usually freeze all our seeds. Corn. I got some barley here. I wish I would have put that in earlier. What are we putting in? Beans?
Did I buy beans from this last year and we just bought stuff, or was this leftovers from last year's season?
Green beans, maybe from last year or the year before.
But I thought, did I not buy new ones?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's open. Oops.
Put some of those in. You just gotta make sure we set some aside because I would like to rotate.
Why didn't we just buy some?
Yeah, I bought just only a couple packets.
Radishes. Put radishes in.
So to give you guys an idea what we already got going on here, we got 2 rows of strawberries. These stay in here every year. We planted them, I think, a year or 2 ago. And we've been really just cutting back on the runners right now and really trying to get the plants established. I think it drives my wife actually a little nuts with the runners. Just doesn't look as neat, but still trying to get these plants to develop a little bit more solid. They were pretty small when we started off. Like I mentioned, we are trying out hay this year. There are wood chips underneath this, but it's just getting harder and harder for us to keep up with wood chips. I believe we have 4 rows of potatoes here. This row here, I didn't show you guys, but I planted sweet onions in this first row. Then I got 2 rows of yellow onions, and the main reason, yellow onions aren't my absolute favorite, but they tend to have a longer shelf life, storing them over the winter. So it's a lot of times it's pretty nice to bulk this up, or a lot of times you use your red and your white onions earlier in the fall just because they don't store as well. So actually that's what I have here is a red onion, then I got the white onion, and then what we'll do is continue on down. We're putting this hay down, we're putting it down relatively thick, maybe 6-8 inches, and possibly even thicker than that. This is such an old moldy hay bale. A lot of these chunks that we're putting on here are just like, they're just thick walls. I mean, even just trying to drive your finger through them, they're like disc almost. So one of my top priorities for this year is I want to try growing this heirloom variety of popcorn. It's one of my favorite popcorns. It's done by a guy out of Iowa. This last spring, I should say even before spring, somewhere in January, February timeframe, I did a couple little test sprouts in our house to see if these things would actually germinate. Because one of my big concerns is how is this popcorn dried? If they use some sort of dryers at all, that could potentially kill the germination of these seeds. But because they're an heirloom variety, if I plant these, theoretically I should get the exact same plant that came out of this. So this is one of my favorite popcorns I've ever had. It's really small, it doesn't have a lot of kernels at all that get stuck in your teeth. The popcorn we did last year, it was okay. It wasn't too bad, but it definitely is not on the top of my favorite list. So I want to make this popcorn work this year. And last year we did some Danny corn way down that way. I ended up tilling up a whole bunch of other space in here, and one of the plans is to get the popcorn down more towards this side here, a little bit away from where the Danny corn was. But when I'm measuring what I have here right now, we're talking like just barely over 90 inches, and I want a little bit more space in there because a lot of times you space your row 30 inches. And I could maybe theoretically go this way, get several kernels going across, space it 30 inches, and go all the way down, but then it gets really difficult if I have to run a tiller up and down the rows. So I want nice long rows so I can just do a couple passes up and down this row. So part of the reason we put the popcorn, or planning on putting the popcorn over here versus over in the main garden areas, we do sweet corn over there. We don't want things to cross-pollinate at all. If you're someone that doesn't do a lot of garden or really aren't quite sure what that means, you know, two different varieties of popcorn and a sweet corn can definitely cross-pollinate. You don't end up with the most ideal thing. You might take some characteristics of one and the other, and a lot of times certain crops are obviously bred for certain characteristics. Sweet corn for the sweetness, and popcorn for the fact that it can dry out and be popped. So with that being said, one of our plans this year with the sweet corn is we're going to up production a little bit, and we're going to try something new. We're going to try actually taking some of this stuff to the farmer's market. It's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. You think, you know, oh, you just take the stuff, you set up a table at some farmer's market and away you go. But we live in a pretty small town. A lot of times there's only 3-4 people there. And one of my biggest worries is we go spend the whole entire afternoon getting all the stuff lugged down there, harvested, and we come to find out that we barely made enough money to get the truck back home, sort of deal. So there's gonna be a lot of learning curves. We've already sent off a couple other emails to some other townships trying to figure out if we could sell at their township as well, potentially. I've already gotten a couple rejections on some of that. I know there's some farmers markets down in the city. I'm trying to figure out what it takes to get involved in that, especially you get a lot more people. Definitely can make your time and energy worth a little bit more if you can move some more product at a quicker rate here. But one of the ones I've already looked at have already filled up their 120 vendors for the year, and now I'm trying to figure out how I can get into the following year, what sort of steps I have to take to make that happen, and if there's some other places that might be worth it. Maybe even just avoiding the farmer's market and try to sell stuff direct to people on Facebook. I don't know. To be honest, it's not really our main intention of why we do gardening. First and foremost, it's always for our family, and we know where the food comes from and what's involved with some of that. But it's just something we'd like to dabble a little bit. It'd be nice to have another source of income coming in from something like this, especially since sometimes there's some years we overplant stuff because there's years we have poor years. We want to make sure we have enough, and the years that things do good, we have a real bumper crop and we have extra to sell off. It'll be nice to be able to turn that into some income. But I got all this stuff already cut down with the mower. We're just gonna run a tiller up and down this area real quick. Plenty of space in here now. I'm getting just about 140, so we could easily stick 4 rows in here. When you're planting corn, you want bare minimum 3 rows. About to run a rake through this, get all the grass clumps out just so they don't reconnect back in.